Hi everyone, you're watching Renovation School. My name is Mustafa. In this episode, I want to show you how to paint your kitchen cabinets. I have painted over 40 sets of kitchen cabinets. I want to show you what materials to use. I want to show you how to spray paint your kitchen cabinets. I also want to show you how to paint kitchen cabinets with golden oak doors. And also I want to show you how to paint cabinets that have thermofoil doors on them. There's a lot of information that I want to cover in this video, so please make sure you watch this video till the end. I always begin by removing the fridge and the stove. I normally don't remove the dishwasher, I just tape around it. This kitchen didn't have a dishwasher. Just to know where every door came from, I placed the tape on every single door in this kitchen cabinet set, and then I started marking them. For the pantry area, I'm using the letter P, which indicates these doors are from the pantry area. So I marked them P1, P2, and so on. For the top kitchen cabinets, I'm using the letter T and the numbers. And for the bottom cabinets, I use the letter B and numbers. For example, B1 means bottom cabinet door 1, B2 means bottom cabinet door 2, and so on. And then I take many pictures and videos from the whole cabinet sets and these numbers. This way I know exactly where each door is going to be installed after the paint job is done. It will make my life a lot easier to identify where every door is gonna go. I always remove my door handles first, and then I remove my hinges. If your kitchen cabinets have a face frame, just like these ones, all you need to do is to remove that center screw from all these hinges, and then the doors come right off. This is another very common type of hinge. This plastic piece comes off, those two screws are for adjustment. There's a lever at the back that you can pinch it and pull it right out and the door will come right out. Once your painting is done, this part has to sit first. You put it in place and then push that tab back in place and the door is installed. The first thing I do after removing all my kitchen cabinet doors is this. I place the door on its back, I remove all my hinges, and then I mark every single hinge. Basically on the back side of these hinges, I write down where exactly it came from. For example, this is the top one, I put a T. This is the middle, I put an M on it. And this is the bottom one, I put a B on it. As you can see here, the adjustment is slightly different on these hinges. These hinges were adjusted when they installed these kitchen cabinets. I'm gonna save myself some time by marking them right now, so later on when the job is done, I don't have to readjust these. And then I get myself a Ziploc bag, I write down the number of the door a few times on it, and then I place all these hinges inside it and put it away. After removing the door hinges, right inside those counter holes, I write down the number of the door and the location of my top and bottom hinges. For example, this one says P6 top, it means this is pantry door number 6 and that's the location of the top hinge. And then I place a piece of tape on top of this mark, so when I paint this door, that mark is gonna be still there. After the cabinets are painted, then I remove this piece of tape, so that way I know where exactly this door is gonna go. As you can see, the face of the cabinet is completely clean and the tape is all the way in the very bottom part in the inside. So after I transfer all my marks, it's time to flip the door the other way and remove that door number that I left at the very beginning. I repeat the same process for all these doors and then I move to the drawers. If your drawers have a bracket like this, I normally mark all around it with a pencil. I leave a pencil mark all around it. This way after I'm done, I can put it back exactly where it came from, so I don't have to adjust it too much. As far as marking these ones, I put the door on its back just like the other ones, and then I write down the door number right in the center part of this door, and then I also write down which way exactly is the top of this cabinet door. This way when I install it back, I know exactly where the top is and which door number this is. If you want to save some time and avoid any headaches later on, it's a very good idea to place all these screws inside separate bags and also mark them so you know where exactly all these screws are gonna go to. All the doors and drawers are removed, and then I begin by removing all these shelves. My kitchen cabinets are pretty nice and clean here. I don't have to wash them up, but if you have lots of grease around the stove and all the other parts of the kitchen, it's a good idea to wash them with a good degreaser before you start your sanding process. The finish on this kitchen cabinet set looked pretty soft, so I started using a 220 grit sandpaper as a sample just to see how it's gonna etch up the surface. If it was an oak kitchen cabinet set, I would have used 150 grit sandpaper, or at the very max 180, because oak has more grain to it and it's slightly more difficult to sand. In order to get a good adhesion between the primer and the body of these cabinets, it's very important to sand everything down. The crown molding is not such a big deal, but on all the other areas where people are gonna touch it and areas that have more traffic, it's extremely important to sand everything down before priming it. In order to manage the amount of dust, as you can see, I used my hands to sand everything down. If I was using a machine, it would have been a lot more dustier than this. This is how it looks like after my sanding was done. This is my favorite degreaser. I buy this from Home Depot. It's called Simple Green, but it looks purple, which is the weird thing. I pour a little bit of this in a sprayer bottle and then I fill the rest of it with warm water. After shaking the bottle, I spray some of this on the body of the cabinets and all the areas that I sanded down. And then I wipe it down with a nice and clean microfiber cloth. I repeat this process twice just to make sure there is no grease and grime left on the surface of my cabinets. To show you how good this degreaser works, take a look at this spot. There is a little bit of oil here. If I get a towel that is wet down with my solution, look how nice it's going to remove it. I make sure I clean up everywhere, including the countertops, the backsplash, inside the cabinets, and all the areas. I don't want to leave any dust or any kind of a grime left. In just a few moments, I am going to explain how to prep and spray the body of your kitchen cabinets. But before I do that, I have to tell you that my favorite method of painting the cabinet bodies is using a brush and roller. Basically, 95% of your kitchen cabinets are covered by the cabinet doors. Because doors are like the face of the cabinet, that's where you want to put all your focus on. If you use a brush and roller on the cabinet bodies, you're gonna save so much time and effort, as you don't have to tape and cover everywhere with plastic. But in this video, I'm gonna explain both methods and make your life a lot easier. So if you're using a brush and a roller, it's a good idea to start from the bottom cabinets, so this way you can get a hang of it before you move to the top cabinets, or before you get to those crown moldings and the skirt boarding that is sitting on the bottom part of the top cabinets. Basically what I mean is the top cabinets are a lot more noticeable, so just to get the best result on the top, make sure you start from the bottom. As far as the primer, my absolute favorite is the shellac. I believe once you go shellac, you never go back. Primer is critical for a professional finish because it helps with the adhesion and it helps prevent thinness from bleeding through, especially if you're going to use lighter colors. Sherwin-Williams also has a good quality primer, but between that and the Ben, I really prefer the Ben. The Ben primer dries a lot faster, it's easier to sand, you get more coverage and it's easier to apply and it smells less. If you don't use a good quality respirator, you're gonna have a very bad headache, so make sure you cover yourself with a good quality respirator, which you can mostly buy from the paint stores. I painted over 40 sets of kitchen cabinets and I find shellac the most durable kind of a primer. It also helps a lot with blocking the odors in comparison with the water-based and oil-based primers. In the end, I gotta say, it's impossible to beat the shellac. As far as the tools, I mostly use a throwaway brush, a brush that is only like $4 or $5. Shellac is very hard to clean. You mostly need denatured alcohol to clean it with, and I really don't like to spend that much time cleaning my tools after this. I just throw them away. This is the type of roller that I really like to use. As you can see, it has a very fine fuzz on it. When the primer dries, it kind of mimics the spray texture, and it's kind of hard to say that it wasn't a spray. But if you want to spray paint the kitchen and cabinet bodies and the faces, you need to tape and cover up all around and inside the cabinets. Not only those, you need to cover up all the backsplash, all your countertops, floors, and the ceilings. And also you have to plastic wrap and make an area for yourself, just to protect yourself against the overspray. Let me show you how I tape up the inside part of these kitchen cabinets. The top part is pretty much flush, so I put a piece of tape first, just to protect the inside part of the cabinet. I do the same thing on the bottom, and then I get another piece of tape and I fold it in half almost, and place it right on top of this one. Basically, half of this tape is gonna sit on top of the tape that I just installed, and the other half is gonna be on the face of the cabinet so I can tape my paper to it. The sides and that center piece is slightly easier. I just cut myself a piece of tape and I place it right halfway on the back side of these sides and that center part. And then I get myself some masking paper, I cut it to the sizes I need, and then I push it into the tape. This way it's gonna attach. If there's any weak spots, I'm gonna put some more tape on it just to ensure it's not gonna move while I'm gonna spray it. These masking papers come in different sizes, so you can buy different sizes if you need to. This process is extremely time consuming. This is the reason why I like brushing and rolling these cabinet bodies. Now, being a contractor, I have many different types of sprayers. For this project, I decided to use this Earlix Sprayer Station 5500. I really like this sprayer because it's very efficient. It's an airless sprayer, so it doesn't need an air compressor. It sprays the shellac primer very nicely without any overspray. But if you are a DIYer watching this video, you really don't have to buy this sprayer. Shellac primer also comes in spray cans, and every can goes a very long way. Let's say for a job like this, you probably can get away with using 5 or 6 of these cans. So you really don't have to buy this. You can also use an HVLP gun with an air compressor if you have any of those already in your garage. I normally add about 20% denatured alcohol to my shellac so it sprays nicer and easier. The cool thing about shellac primer is that it dries up extremely quick. Normally, before I even clean up my tools, the shellac is already dried up. It normally takes about half an hour to dry up, at the very max, maybe an hour. For the actual paint, I use a Graco airless sprayer. After I get the doors ready, I show you what type of a sprayer I use, what kind of a paint I use, and what type of additive I add to it to get the best quality result. For now, I just want to show you that I put on 2 coats of this paint on these cabinets, and it did a very good job. I was very happy with it. After a couple of hours, when it dried up, I removed all the tape, the plastic and everything, and I allowed the homeowner to use these cabinets while I can take the doors away to my shop so I can paint them there. As far as prepping my kitchen cabinet doors, I like to use 120 grit sandpaper. I take a small piece, I fold it in 3 like that, and then I sand down all the detailed areas by hand. Keep in mind, I'm not planning on removing everything from here. I don't want to remove all that finish, I just want to etch the surface. This way my primer can adhere to this a lot better. For all the flat parts, I'm going to be using my palm sanders. If you don't have them, you can use your hand and sand everything by hand. In a few minutes, I'm going to show you how to sand down a door by hand. In order to get the best quality, make sure you go with the grain of the wood every time you're sanding something. It's very important, make sure you don't miss that step. Keep in mind, there was no greasy or oily spots on my kitchen cabinet doors, so I just jumped into the sanding process. But in your case, if there is any oil or grease, make sure you clean them up with a degreaser, just like the way I showed you previously, and then let them dry up and then go to the sanding process. You can definitely sand the doors by hand, it just requires more time and elbow grease. If you have the time and patience, then go for it. I do the same thing on oak kitchen cabinet sets. I always sand it with the grain of the wood with 120 grit sandpaper. It's very important to just etch up the surface. You don't want to remove too much material. If you sand it too much, what happens after your painting is done? Chances are that golden color from the stain on the bottom is going to leak through your paint and it's going to damage it very bad, especially if you're going to use a light color. The one thing to keep in mind before sanding these doors is, let's say if you want to replace your door handles and go with the bigger size, you need to fill out the holes that were left by the previous handles. And also, if there is any deep scratches or let's say imperfections on the surface of your doors, I'm going to show you how to fix them and get them ready for paint. I left some scratches and a hole on the back side of this cabinet door just so I can show you how to repair deep scratches and damaged areas. The first thing I do, I remove all the loose debris and then I sand it down very lightly just so I make sure that all the loose debris are gone. After that, I clean it with a degreaser and my air compressor, and then I apply my wood filler. This is the wood filler that I like to use. I just apply it on top of the hole. I go over it a few times and then I clean up all the excess material. The same way I apply the wood filler on top of the scratches. I push it a few times and then I remove all the excess material from it. Now let me show you how I fix these holes for the door handles. I just apply the wood filler a few times on it. I push it from different angles. Make sure you don't skip the back side. Do this, let it dry up for 20 minutes, sand it down and repeat it again. After doing it twice, when the sanding is done, this is how it looks like. Now it's ready for primer. Another type of cabinet door that is extremely common is these ones. These are called thermofoil. Most of the time the glue fails from this area and it comes loose. For the most part, the backside on these doors are white melamine, but this one has the same color as the front. This thermofoil is always installed on top of MDF, so in order to remove this, you have to heat it up with a heat gun. I normally start from one corner, I heat it up a little bit, and then I get myself a tool. A knife is very helpful. I just go underneath of this layer, I try to pry it off of the MDF. Once you pry it off of the MDF, I lay it down and I start working with it until I can remove it. The key thing is to be very patient. A lot of these thermofoil layers come off extremely easy, but some companies use a lot of glue or a better type of glue. So you have to make sure you heat it down a lot when you're removing it. This way when you're pulling it, you're not going to damage the surface of your MDF. So if you pull it apart without heating it first, it might break some chunks of your MDF. I normally remove the sides and the corners first and then work my way out to the center. After removing the thermofoil from the door, I normally let it cool down for a few minutes and then I sand the whole thing down. Some cabinet makers use a lot of glue under the thermofoil, so if that's the case and you cannot sand it easily, just spray some acetone on the surface of the doors and spray a little bit on your sandpaper and basically wet sand it down. It should take care of it. After the sanding is completely done, I normally get myself some warm water and I apply a little bit of that simple green degreaser to it, and I wash down all these doors twice before applying my primer to them. This way I ensure there's no debris, grime or any kind of a dust sitting on the surface of my cabinet doors. After I wash the doors twice, I place them all nice and neatly on top of this drying rack. At the end of this video, I'm gonna leave a link in case you wanna learn how to make one of these. You can make it. But if you're only doing one set of cabinets, you can get away with just wrapping some 2x6 or 2x8 lumber with some baking paper and then put that down on the ground, and then you can place all your doors on top of that while they dry up. This tent is called a spray shelter. It's designed for small spray jobs like this. You can basically make a spray booth right on the side of your garage, and it's not going to take too much space. And while you're painting inside this, all the paint particles are not going to get on the air and all over the garage. Because I'm planning on spray painting all these kitchen cabinet doors, I also made this turning table for myself, so when I'm spraying the doors I don't have to walk around them. In the drying rack video I also covered how to make one of these as well. It's time to apply the primer. One more time, I highly recommend using shellac primer. It's going to be the best for any type of door, any type of kitchen cabinet job. I only use shellac primer. Again, if you don't have a fancy setup, you can just use the cans. Make sure you shake them well and then start your spray job. I normally spray the back side of the cabinet doors first. After they dry up, I do the front, and then I repeat the same. I do 2 coats of paint on the back side and 2 coats of paint in the front. The only downside is because you cannot thin down your shellac on these cans, you might have a little bit of a rough finish, so make sure you sand down one more time after your primer is done before you apply your paint. If you use the spray cans for your primer and the finish is slightly rough, don't freak out, it's not a big deal. You can get some 220 grit sandpaper, give it a couple of passes, just go very smoothly over this just to remove all those imperfections and bumps, and then wipe it down and it's ready for paint. For this job I'm going to be using my air compressor and an HVLP gun with a 2mm tip. I'm going to thin down my primer 20% with denatured alcohol, so this way it's going to apply a lot smoother, and when it dries up there's not going to be any imperfections on the surface of my doors. One more time, I always do the back side of the kitchen cabinet doors first. I let them dry up and then I do the front. For my primer I only do 1 coat on the back and 1 coat in the front. As far as the paint, I do 2 coats in the back and 2 coats in the front. The good thing about shellac primer is it actually dries up very quick, and it actually covers up the darkest colors in 1 coat. So if you pay for it, it's really worth it. Now this is that golden oak door that I damaged and then repaired it. Let's see how it's gonna turn out after the paint job is done. If your primer is dried up and you don't have an airless sprayer, I'm going to show you how to use your brush and roller to paint or finish up your kitchen cabinet doors. As you can see here, I have some paint conditioner with me. This specific brand is called Flood. I love it, it's my absolute favorite. I applied a little bit of this in my paint. I also applied some of this to my brush, so when I brush the paint on, it actually applies the paint a lot nicer and smoother. Basically, this conditioner is going to minimize the amount of brush marks and the roller marks on the surface of the kitchen cabinet doors. This is a 4-inch mini roller that I really like. It has a very fine fuzz to it, so when you apply the paint with it, it actually comes very nice and smooth, and it kind of mimics the spray texture when it's dried up. I normally apply my paint with a very soft brush to all these detailed areas first, and then I use my roller to go over the whole surface and make sure everything gets the same exact texture. So one thing to keep in mind when you're applying the paint with the brush and the roller, make sure you go with the grain of the wood every time you apply it. This way when your finish is dried up, it's gonna look very nice and flawless. I didn't want to bore you too much with this video. The backside was already done. The procedure is exactly the same. I'm just showing the front here just as an example. The brush and roller technique will require a lot of patience, it's going to take a lot of time, but if you want to speed up the things and if you want to get a better quality, it's a good idea to spend a little bit of money and get yourself an airless sprayer. An airless sprayer like the one I'm using on this video is going to only cost you about $400 to $500, but honestly the result is going to be extremely different. You're going to have a very nice and a smooth finish. And also, after this job is done, you can use that sprayer for many other projects in the house. So I highly recommend you to get something like that and use it. This is my Graco X5 sprayer that I got from Home Depot. Keep in mind I'm not sponsored by anyone, so anything I'm showing on this video is coming right from my own personal experience. My favorite paint for any cabinet job is Emerald by Sherwin-Williams. It's one of the highest quality paints that I've seen in my life. I really love it. I swear by the quality of this paint. I use this stuff religiously on all my kitchen cabinet jobs. I always strain my paint using a mesh just to ensure there's no imperfections in it. Before I know about this paint, which is Emerald by Sherwin-Williams, I used to use Benjamin Moore Advanced. There's some stuff that I don't like about Benjamin Moore Advanced. The number one, it smells very bad. Number two, it's not gonna level up as good as this one, and number three, it's gonna yellow up after some time. Basically, the paint is gonna tint to slightly yellowish after some time. The secret to my recipe is to use about 1 cup of this Flood paint conditioner to 2 gallons of paint. Once you do that, you have to mix your paint for a good 4 to 5 minutes. When you apply this paint on the cabinets, it's gonna lay out super nice and smooth. You have to see how beautiful it turns out. It's finally time to apply the paint to the actual kitchen cabinet doors. As you can see, I always start from the back side. The best tip that I can give you guys is to apply thin layers of paint, but do multiple coats. Even if your first coat of paint is not covering everything and you're not getting that color that you want, it's okay. Don't overspray it, give it some time. Once it dries up, once you do the second coat, it's gonna turn out very beautiful. Just take your time and don't overspray it because it's gonna have runs and the paint is not gonna look good. This is the tip that I like to use for this job. It's a Graco 211. This tip was designed for thinner paint, but because I added that conditioner to my paint, it actually sprays it very nice and smooth. The one thing I like about adding that Flood conditioner to my paint is it sprays a lot smoother, and when I put these doors away after spraying on the drying racks, because of the conditioner properties, the paint levels itself down, and once it dries up, it looks super smooth. There's another guy on YouTube that installs hooks on the top and the bottom of the doors just so he can spray the front and the backs on one shot. I did try it one time and I have to admit this was the dumbest idea ever. The reason why is the paint comes out with a lot of pressure from that gun, and when you actually aim it toward the door, while the door is hanging like that, it hits it and the door moves back and forward a lot. So this way you cannot have a nice and even coat on it. Not only that, you cannot get all the angles and areas covered. And the other bad thing is because of the gravity, when you hang it back on the rack, the gravity will pull the paint down and you're gonna have runs and drips. So for those reasons, I like to stick with this method. So there you have it guys, the doors are sprayed. I'm going to show you a close-up of how these doors look like now. As you can see, this finish is extremely beautiful and it looks amazing. Now this is the same oak door that I used my roller and brush to finish it. I only used this door for demonstration purposes. I only put 1 coat on it. Even 1 coat did a very good job. As you can see, it's pretty nice and beautiful. Now it's time to go back to the client's house and install all the doors the same way that we removed them. After the doors and handles are installed, it's time to install the new bumpers on the doors. These are the bumpers that I used. I got them from Home Depot. These 2 doors were located right under the sink, and as you can see, the water caused some damage to them. To stop this damage from happening again, I'm using some of this ultra clear silicone. I decided to put a bead of this silicone right under the countertop So if there's any water coming from the top, it's gonna come and hit this, and then it's gonna drop on the ground instead of landing on the door. At this point, this kitchen is done and it's time to celebrate. One more time, thank you very much for watching Renovation School. I hope this video was a help to you. If it was, please make sure you hit that like button. If you have any questions, please make sure you write a comment in the comment section below. I will get back to every question as soon as I can. And also, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. There's a lot of cool videos on the way. I hope you're not missing them. Thank you so much again. Till next time, peace.